The morning sun poured through the windows of Marcus Johnson's modest two-bedroom apartment as he buttoned his crisp navy blue shirt. The day was important, a milestone he had worked tirelessly to achieve. At 32 years old, Marcus, an ambitious entrepreneur with an eye for innovation, had finally decided to reward himself. After years of long nights, relentless networking, and more rejections than he cared to count, his tech company, SparkMind Solutions, had broken through. The email confirming a major deal with a Silicon Valley firm had landed in his inbox 2 days ago. A contract worth 6 figures. It wasn't just a win for the company, it was a win for Marcus and everything he represented. Growing up in a struggling neighborhood in Baltimore, Marcus had heard it all. Stay in your lane. Guys like you don't make it out. You'll never be more than the stereotypes people see. Today, Marcus was proving them all wrong. Standing in front of the mirror, he adjusted his collar and smiled to himself. The plan was simple. Drive to Benson Prestige Autos, a high-end dealership on the outskirts of town, and pick out the car he had always dreamed of. Not a flashy sports car. Marcus wasn't about flash. He wanted a sleek, professional black Audi, something sharp but understated, a car that said, "I've arrived, and I'm here to stay." Harry Dieter saw the showroom at Benson Prestige Autos gleamed with polished floors and spotlit vehicles that shone like jewels. The walls were covered with slick advertisements and gold-lettered slogans like, "Where dreams meet the road." Marcus stepped inside with the kind of quiet confidence that turned heads. A few salesmen loitered by the reception desk, laughing among themselves, until one of them, a tall, middle-aged man with slicked-back hair, noticed Marcus. The man's smile was a polished mask. "Afternoon, sir. Can I help you?" His name tag read, Tom Walker. Marcus extended a hand, which Tom shook briefly. "I'm looking to buy a car today, an Audi A6 or A8, preferably." Tom's eyes flickered with surprise, his smile twitching as if it wanted to falter. "The A8, huh? Big choice. You're sure you're in the right place for that?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I think so. I've heard great things about this dealership." Of course," Tom let out a sharp laugh. "It's just, well, the A8 is a bit on the premium side. Not everyone's budget can stretch that far, you know?" Marcus's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to stay calm. "I've done my research. I'm ready to buy if I find what I'm looking for." Tom's polished mask slipped for a moment. He glanced Marcus up and down, his gaze lingering on the scuffed dress shoes Marcus had worn for years and the simple watch on his wrist. "You sure you don't want to check out our pre-owned lot first? We've got some great options there, much more affordable." The implication stung, but Marcus refused to give Tom the satisfaction of reacting. "I didn't come here for a pre-owned car. I'd like to see the A8. "All right, suit yourself." Tom's voice carried a note of forced politeness. "Follow me." As Marcus walked through the showroom, Tom prattled on, his words soaked in thinly veiled condescension. "These cars, you know, they're for folks with serious careers. Lawyers, executives, business owners. A lot of responsibility comes with driving something like this." Marcus let the comments slide off him like rain. Years of dealing with people like Tom had taught him restraint. As they approached the Audi A8, a stunning jet-black model with a leather interior, Marcus's excitement grew. He ran a hand along the smooth lines of the car, imagining himself behind the wheel. "It's beautiful," Marcus said softly. "Sure is." Tom crossed his arms. "Now, I don't mean to offend, but these cars don't exactly come cheap. Financing something like this could be, well, challenging if you're not prepared." Marcus turned to face him, his voice even. "I didn't ask about financing." "Oh?" Tom blinked. "So, you're paying cash?" "Yes," Marcus replied without hesitation. Tom's face froze for a moment before he laughed, a short, skeptical bark. "Cash? Well, now that's impressive. Tell you what, why don't I grab the paperwork and—" Before he could finish, another salesman, a younger man named Eric, approached. "Hey Tom, do you need help here?" Eric glanced at Marcus and gave a genuine smile. "Sir, are you interested in taking the A8 for a test drive?" Tom cut him off. "Eric, it's fine. I've got it under control." Marcus caught the way Eric's smile faltered, and he understood. Tom wasn't just condescending, he was territorial. Sitting across from Tom in the dealership office, Marcus filled out the paperwork while Tom watched him with thinly veiled suspicion. "So, Mr. Johnson, what exactly is it you do?" "I own a tech company," Marcus replied. "A tech company?" Tom repeated, his tone dripping with disbelief. "Well, how about that? Look, no offense, but this car is a serious commitment. Are you absolutely sure you're ready for this step? I mean, we've had cases before." Marcus put down the pen, cutting him off. "Cases before where what, Tom?" Tom hesitated, but the condescension still lingered in his voice. "Let's just say, not everyone's situation is what it seems." Marcus leaned back in his chair and held Tom's gaze. "You're assuming I can't afford this car because of the way I look. That's it, isn't it?" Tom's face reddened, but he didn't respond. Marcus rose to his feet, his voice calm but firm. "You know what? Forget it. I don't need this car or this place." "Hey, now wait," Tom started, but Marcus was already walking out the door. As Marcus drove away in his old sedan, his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. The humiliation burned in his chest, but it wasn't new. He'd faced men like Tom his entire life, people who saw his skin, his clothes, and nothing else. But what Tom didn't know was this. Marcus didn't just have enough to buy that car. He had enough to buy the entire dealership, and soon he would. The sound of Marcus's old sedan rattling against the uneven asphalt filled the silence as he drove back to his office in downtown Baltimore. The sting of humiliation lingered, but so did a quiet resolve. Benson Prestige Autos and Tom Walker were already behind him, at least in his mind. Pulling into the parking lot of SparkMind Solutions, Marcus took a deep breath. The modest brick building might not have been much from the outside, but to him, it was everything. Inside those walls was the culmination of blood, sweat, and sacrifice. As he climbed the stairs, he passed the bright green SparkMind logo on the door and stepped into the open office space. A handful of employees worked diligently at their desks, the air buzzing with quiet focus. "Hey, boss," came a cheerful voice. It was Jasmine, his operations manager, and one of the first people to believe in his vision. "Morning, Jazz," Marcus replied, masking the frustration still clinging to him. "You all right? You look like you're about to fight someone." Marcus gave her a lopsided smile. "Rough morning, car shopping?" Jasmine's eyes narrowed knowingly. "Ah, one of those mornings. Don't worry about it. We've got bigger things to focus on." In the meeting room, Marcus stood in front of the team, a diverse group of 6 sharp minds, ranging from developers to strategists, preparing for the company's most critical meeting yet. "All right, everyone," Marcus began, pacing the room. "The contract with Horizon Technologies is a game changer. They're not just clients, they're partners now. This is the start of something huge for SparkMind." Horizon Technologies was one of Silicon Valley's rising giants, and partnering with them to implement SparkMind's innovative cloud solutions had cemented Marcus's credibility in the tech world. "Here's what this means for us," Marcus continued, excitement building in his voice. "More growth, more clients, and more opportunities. But it also means we need to stay sharp. Horizon will push us, and I know we're ready for it." The team nodded, their energy matching his. "Let's get to work." As the meeting ended, Jasmine hung back. "You should be proud, Marcus. Horizon's no joke." "I am," Marcus admitted, leaning against the table. "But we're not stopping here. This is just the beginning. Jasmine smiled. So what's next? Next? Marcus's eyes narrowed with determination. We scale up. I want SparkMine to be a household name. And after that? He hesitated, a flash of Benson Prestige Autos coming to mind. I want to start investing in local businesses. I want us to change the way this city sees success. For that evening, Marcus sat alone at his desk, scrolling through property listings and potential business investments. The Benson Prestige Autos logo suddenly appeared on his screen, and instinctively, Marcus clicked the link. The dealership's website flashed onto his monitor, boasting luxury cars and grand promises. Marcus's eyes scanned the page until he found a small section titled, About Us. He read about the owner, Mr. Gary Benson, a wealthy businessman who had built a small empire of car dealerships across the state. The article noted that Benson Prestige Autos was once the crown jewel of the Benson legacy, but Marcus noticed a detail buried at the bottom of the page. Due to recent market changes, Benson Prestige Autos has been experiencing challenges maintaining its position in the luxury auto sector. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his mind buzzing. Challenges. Es Carustam. A week later, Marcus sat in a sleek glass conference room in San Francisco, finishing a presentation to Horizon Technologies' board. The deal had been finalized days earlier, but Marcus wasn't here just to celebrate. We're expanding SparkMine's capabilities into a full-scale enterprise software suite, Marcus said, clicking through the final slides of his pitch. It's about more than tech. It's about building solutions that empower businesses and change lives. The room erupted in applause. Several executives approached Marcus to shake his hand, congratulating him on his vision and leadership. One of Horizon's senior partners, Sarah Clayton, pulled Marcus aside as the crowd began to thin. You've done something impressive here, Marcus, she said. Not many startups come out of Baltimore and make it this far. Baltimore's full of talent, Marcus replied. It's just waiting for opportunities. Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. What's next for you then? Another big tech venture? Marcus smiled, though his mind was elsewhere. Something different this time. I want to start making investments in areas people overlook, places no one expects success to come from. Sounds like a passion project. It is, Marcus said simply. 2 days later, back in Baltimore, Marcus sat across from his lawyer, Mr. Patel, in a sunlit office downtown. You want to do what? Mr. Patel asked, peering over his glasses. I want to buy Benson Prestige Autos, Marcus replied, setting a folder of printed documents on the desk. Patel leafed through the papers, frowning. You're sure about this? Their finances are a mess. They've been bleeding money for years. I'm sure, Marcus said firmly. I want it. Patel looked at Marcus for a moment, assessing him. This isn't just business, is it? Marcus didn't answer right away. He thought about Tom Walker's smirk, the way he'd been looked at, like he didn't belong, like he'd never belong. No, Marcus finally said. It's not just business. It's personal, but I'm not doing it for revenge. What are you doing it for then? Marcus's gaze was steady. To change the narrative. People like Tom Walker need to learn that success doesn't have one face or one name. Patel smiled faintly, shaking his head. Well, it's your money. I'll draw up the offer. And that night, Marcus sat in his quiet apartment, staring out the window at the city lights below. His phone buzzed with a text message from Jasmine. Deal with Horizon closed. Congrats, boss. What's next? Marcus typed back quickly. Something big. I'll tell you soon. As he set the phone down, Marcus allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. He thought back to the day he'd walked into that dealership and the way Tom had made him feel, small, out of place, invisible. But Marcus Johnson wasn't invisible. By this time next month, he wouldn't just be a customer. He would own the place. Marcus stood in front of the full-length window of his office, looking out at the Baltimore skyline bathed in the warm hues of morning light. His mind was clear, his focus sharp. Today marked the beginning of something significant. Today was the day the papers would be signed. Benson Prestige Autos would officially belong to him. He turned as Jasmine entered, holding a fresh stack of documents. "Morning, boss. Patel's office just confirmed the deal will close at noon." "Good. How's our funding looking?" Marcus asked, flipping through the documents she handed over. "Solid," Jasmine replied. "We've allocated resources without jeopardizing SparkMind's growth. You're pulling this off perfectly." Marcus gave her a small smile. "It's not about perfection, Jazz. It's about vision." Jasmine studied him for a moment, a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why this dealership? I know it's not about revenge, but it's personal, isn't it?" Marcus exhaled slowly, hands in his pockets. "It is. When I walked into that place, I was treated like I didn't belong, like everything I'd built meant nothing. I don't want to own Benson Prestige just to prove Tom wrong, though. I want to change what that place stands for. I want it to be a dealership where everyone feels welcome, no matter where they come from or what they look like." Jasmine's expression softened. "That's why people follow you, Marcus. You turn your struggles into opportunities. So, are you ready to become a car dealership owner?" Marcus chuckled. "Let's find out." By noon, Marcus was sitting in a sleek conference room at Patel's law firm. Across the table sat Gary Benson, the current owner of Benson Prestige Autos, a heavy-set man in his late 60s with thinning white hair. Gary had built his car dealership empire decades ago, but time hadn't been kind to his business. "Mr. Johnson," Gary said, his voice gravelly but polite, "I'll admit, I was surprised when I heard about your offer. I've had buyers interested before, but they always backed out once they saw the books." "I'm not afraid of a challenge," Marcus replied calmly. "The dealership has potential. It just needs the right leadership and vision." Gary regarded him for a moment before nodding. "Well, I respect that. If I'm being honest, I don't have the fight in me anymore. It's been years since Benson Prestige turned a real profit, and the luxury car market's brutal. You're a brave man for taking this on." Marcus didn't blink. "I've built a company from nothing before, Mr. Benson. I know how to turn things around." Gary smiled faintly. "Then I hope you do. This dealership was once my pride and joy. I'd like to see it thrive again." Patel pushed a stack of papers toward Gary. "Everything is in order. Once you sign, ownership of Benson Prestige Autos will officially transfer to Mr. Johnson." Gary picked up the pen, hesitating for just a moment before scrawling his name across the bottom of the page. "There it is," he said, setting the pen down. "It's yours now." Marcus reached across the table to shake Gary's hand. "Thank you. I won't let this place fail." Gary smiled ruefully. "Good luck, son. You're going to need it." Later that afternoon, Marcus walked into Benson Prestige Autos, not as a customer, but as the new owner. The dealership looked exactly as it had the last time he was here. Spotless floors, cars polished to a mirror shine, and salesmen milling about, waiting for customers. The sound of Marcus's footsteps echoed as he entered, drawing the attention of the employees. A hush fell over the room as they turned to look at him. Tom Walker stood by the reception desk, holding a tablet, his face scrunched in confusion as Marcus approached. "Can I help you?" Tom asked, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Marcus smiled faintly. "Actually, I think it's time we had a meeting." Tom blinked, clearly taken aback. "A meeting? With who?" "With me." At that moment, Jasmine entered behind Marcus, holding a folder and looking every bit the efficient professional she was. "Mr. Johnson, the staff is ready for the meeting you requested in the showroom." Tom's mouth fell open. "Mr. Johnson?" he stammered, glancing between Marcus and Jasmine. Wait, what's going on here? Marcus turned to face him, his expression calm but unwavering. Let's not keep everyone waiting, Tom. The employees of Benson Prestige Autos gathered in the showroom, murmuring to each other in confusion. Tom stood toward the back, arms crossed, his face pale. Marcus stepped forward, his posture relaxed but commanding. "Good afternoon, everyone," Marcus began. "For those who don't know me, my name is Marcus Johnson, and as of today, I'm the new owner of Benson Prestige Autos." A ripple of shock passed through the group. "I know this comes as a surprise," Marcus continued, his voice steady. "But let me be clear. I didn't buy this dealership to tear it apart. I bought it because I believe it can be great again. Under my leadership, we're going to rebuild Benson Prestige Autos from the ground up." Tom couldn't hold his tongue any longer. "What do you mean, rebuild? The dealership's fine." Marcus turned his gaze toward Tom, his expression unreadable. "If the dealership were fine, Tom, I wouldn't have been able to buy it. It's not fine, but it can be." Tom opened his mouth to argue, but Marcus didn't give him the chance. "Things are going to change here," Marcus said, his voice carrying through the room. "We're going to focus on customer service, integrity, and inclusivity. This is going to be a dealership where everyone, no matter who they are, feels welcome and respected." Some of the employees nodded hesitantly. Others exchanged wary glances. Marcus paused, letting his words sink in. "I'm not asking you to trust me right away. I'm asking you to give me a chance. Together we can make this dealership something we're all proud of." With that, Marcus stepped back. "Now, let's get to work." As the meeting ended, Tom stormed up to Marcus, his face flushed with anger. "You think you can just walk in here and take over? Who do you think you are?" Marcus met his glare calmly. "I'm the man who signs your paycheck now, Tom." Tom faltered, his jaw clenching. "You don't know a thing about running a dealership." "You're right," Marcus said, "but I know how to run a business, and I know how to lead people. If you want to keep your job, I suggest you start thinking about how you can help me turn this place around." Tom stared at him, speechless. "Don't underestimate me," Marcus added softly. "I didn't come this far just to fail." With that, Marcus turned and walked away, leaving Tom standing alone in the middle of the showroom. The air in Benson Prestige Autos was thick with tension in the days following Marcus's acquisition. Employees were uneasy, whispering in small groups, their glances darting toward the office where Marcus now worked. Change, even for the better, was unsettling. And at the heart of the resistance was Tom Walker. Tom hadn't spoken much since the day of the announcement. He moved through the showroom like a ghost, his smug confidence replaced with a scowl. He avoided Marcus as much as possible, though his presence was impossible to ignore. Marcus, for his part, focused on the numbers. From day one, he dove into the dealership's finances, operations, and marketing strategies. The picture wasn't pretty. Inventory was sitting unsold for months, customer complaints were piling up, and sales were at an all-time low. The once premier dealership had become stagnant under complacent leadership. On the fourth day of Marcus's ownership, he called his first leadership meeting. Jasmine sat beside him in the sleek, glass-walled conference room, her pen poised over her tablet. The sales team sat across from Marcus, their posture guarded. But Tom, seated at the end of the table, wore his disdain like armor. "All right, let's get to it," Marcus began, flipping open the folder in front of him. "I've spent the last 3 days reviewing our operations. We're in trouble, but it's not irreversible. If we act fast, we can turn this place around. Step 1 is customer experience." Tom let out a soft scoff, loud enough for everyone to hear. Marcus paused and looked at him. "Something to say, Tom?" Tom leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Yeah, I've got something to say. This," he gestured around the table, "is a waste of time. I've been here for 15 years, I know what works and what doesn't, and I don't need some tech guy who doesn't know cars telling me how to do my job." The room went silent. All eyes turned to Marcus. 15 years, Marcus said calmly. "That's a long time. You must have seen this place at its best." "I did," Tom shot back. "Back when people who actually knew this business ran it." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "And where are we now? Sales are down. Inventory is piling up. We're losing customers. Tell me, Tom, if you've been here so long and you know what works, why is this dealership falling apart?" Tom's face flushed. "It's not my fault. The economy's bad. People don't want luxury cars anymore." "People still buy luxury cars, Tom," Marcus interrupted. "They just don't buy them from us. That's not the economy. That's us. That's customer service. That's our reputation. That's leadership." Tom pushed back his chair abruptly. "This is ridiculous." "Sit down," Marcus said firmly, his voice sharp but controlled. Tom froze. No one had ever spoken to him like that before, least of all his boss. Slowly, he sank back into his seat. Marcus leaned forward, his tone softer, but no less resolute. "Look, Tom, I didn't buy this place to tear it apart. I bought it because I believe it can be great again. But that's only going to happen if we stop making excuses and start taking responsibility." Tom avoided his gaze, staring at the table. "I'm not here to get rid of anyone," Marcus continued, "but I will hold people accountable. If you're not willing to be part of the solution, then you're part of the problem." The room was silent, as Marcus's words hung in the air. "This meeting's over," he said finally. "I expect everyone to bring me a strategy for improving customer experience by tomorrow. Tom, I want to see you in my office." Minutes later, Marcus sat behind his desk as Tom entered, shoulders squared defensively. "Close the door," Marcus said, his voice calm. Tom did as he was told but didn't sit down. "What do you want?" Marcus gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." Tom hesitated but finally sank into the seat. His face was tight with frustration, but there was something else beneath it. Something Marcus recognized. "You think I'm here to humiliate you?" Marcus began. "You think I came in with a grudge, looking for revenge?" Tom said nothing. Marcus continued, his voice steady. "Let's be clear about something. I didn't buy this dealership because of you. I bought it because I see potential here. You just happen to be part of it." Tom snorted. "Don't pretend like this isn't personal." "It is personal," Marcus admitted, surprising Tom. "The way you treated me that day, it was personal, but not in the way you think." Tom frowned, confused. "You looked at me and made assumptions," Marcus said quietly. "You judged me based on how I looked, what I wore, the color of my skin. That wasn't new for me, Tom. I've been underestimated my entire life, and every time it happens, I use it as fuel to prove people wrong. That day, you didn't just insult me. You reminded me why I work so hard to succeed." Tom's gaze dropped to the desk. His shoulders slumped slightly, the fight draining from him. "I'm not here to punish you," Marcus said. "I'm here to change this place. But you have to decide if you're willing to change with it." Tom looked up at him, his expression wary. "Why give me a chance? Why not just fire me?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Because everyone deserves a chance to be better, even you." For a long moment, Tom said nothing. The words seemed to sit heavy on him, settling into cracks Marcus wasn't sure had existed before. Finally, Tom spoke, his voice quieter. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to do your job," Marcus replied. "But I also want you to think about how you treat people. Customers, colleagues, everyone who walks through that door. If you can do that, you'll find I'm not as bad as you think I am." Tom stared at him, and for the first time, Marcus saw something he hadn't seen before. Humility. "All right," Tom muttered finally. "I'll think about it." "That's all I'm asking," Marcus said. Tom stood, his movements slower, less sharp than before. As he turned to leave, he paused, his hand on the doorknob. Why'd you let me stay, Johnson? After the way I treated you? Marcus looked at him and smiled faintly. Because people like you taught me something important a long time ago, Tom. Never let someone else's opinion of you define who you are. Tom didn't respond. He simply nodded once and walked out, leaving Marcus alone in his office. Marcus sat back in his chair, letting out a long breath. The hardest battles weren't always fought with numbers or strategies. Sometimes they were fought with patience, compassion, and the belief that even the hardest hearts could change. And this was only the beginning. The days following Marcus's conversation with Tom Walker were tense, but change was beginning to ripple through Benson Prestige Autos. Marcus's words had struck a nerve, not just with Tom, but with the entire team. They were no longer certain of their place in the new dealership. Some feared layoffs, others worried about being micromanaged. The unease was palpable, but Marcus remained patient. Change took time. On Monday morning, Marcus stood at the front of the showroom, speaking to the staff during the first of what would become weekly team meetings. He wore no suit or tie, just a sharp, simple button-down and slacks. He wasn't here to intimidate. He was here to inspire. "Good morning, everyone," Marcus began, his tone confident, yet calm. "Last week, I told you all that we're rebuilding this dealership. That starts with trust and teamwork. For too long, Benson Prestige Autos has been stuck in its ways, and that's why we're failing. But I believe in the people here. I believe in you." Some employees exchanged wary glances, but a few, like young Eric, the junior salesman who had been polite to Marcus during his first visit, nodded with faint hope. Tom Walker stood near the back, his arms crossed, his face guarded but no longer openly hostile. Marcus continued, "This week, we're implementing new customer service strategies. We're going to treat every person who walks through these doors with respect. No assumptions, no judgment. Whether they're buying a $10,000 used sedan or a $90,000 Audi, they're getting our best. Understood?" A murmur of agreement moved through the team. Marcus paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "I'm also introducing a new incentive program. Top performers will be rewarded with bonuses, not just for sales numbers, but for customer satisfaction scores. Happy customers are loyal customers, and loyalty keeps us alive." At that, a shift occurred. Eyes brightened. Marcus had their attention now. Incentives were tangible. They understood that. "Finally," Marcus said, his gaze sweeping across the group, "I'm here to lead, but I'm also here to listen. If you have ideas, concerns, or questions, my door is open. This isn't just my dealership, it's ours." After the meeting, Marcus approached Tom, who lingered near a row of spotless luxury cars, pretending to study them. "Tom," Marcus said evenly. Tom looked up, his expression still unreadable. "What?" "Walk with me." Tom hesitated, then sighed and fell into step beside Marcus as they moved through the showroom. "I meant what I said in there," Marcus began. "I'm not here to push you out. You're one of the most experienced salesmen here, and this place needs you." Tom let out a humorless laugh. "You don't know me, Johnson. I don't need your charity." "It's not charity, Tom. It's an opportunity," Marcus said firmly. "I want you to take a leadership role here. Train the newer sales team, work on building relationships with customers, show them how it's done." Tom glanced at him sharply. "Why me?" "Because you know this place inside and out," Marcus replied. "You've been here longer than anyone, and despite our issues, I can see you care about this dealership. You just lost sight of what made you good in the first place." Tom was silent, his footsteps echoing on the pristine showroom floor. "What if I screw it up?" he muttered finally. "Then you learn and try again," Marcus said. "That's what second chances are for." Tom's gaze flickered to Marcus. For the first time, Marcus saw something different in his eyes. Not defiance, not bitterness, but the faintest glimmer of possibility. "I'll think about it," Tom mumbled. That's all I'm asking, Marcus replied with a small smile. Erdacchio, or the weeks that followed, marked a turning point. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and got to work alongside his team. He didn't hide behind his office door. He was on the floor, speaking to customers, shadowing salespeople, and encouraging the staff. His leadership style was simple: lead by example. The new customer service strategies began taking root. Employees were friendlier, more attentive, and more open-minded. They stopped assuming what a customer could afford and started treating everyone with dignity. Slowly, word began to spread. Customers who had avoided Benson Prestige Autos for years started returning. Tom, true to his word, stepped up. He didn't change overnight, but Marcus saw the effort. He started working with Eric, mentoring the younger salesman on closing techniques and customer rapport. To everyone's surprise, Tom's numbers began to climb again, and customers started leaving positive reviews about his new approach. One evening, as Marcus was finishing up paperwork in his office, Tom knocked on the door. "Got a minute?" Tom asked gruffly. Marcus looked up, smiling faintly. "Of course, come in." Tom stepped inside, looking awkward. He rubbed the back of his neck, searching for the right words. I wanted to say thanks for not firing me, for giving me a chance." Marcus set his pen down, studying Tom carefully. "I didn't give you a chance, Tom. You took it." Tom looked down, his jaw tight. "I was wrong about you." "About a lot of things. I've spent years thinking I had people figured out, but you're not what I expected." Marcus chuckled softly. "Life's full of surprises, isn't it?" Tom's gaze met his, more genuine than Marcus had ever seen. "Yeah, it is." After a beat, Tom cleared his throat and stood straighter. "Anyway, I'm heading out. Just thought you should know." "Thanks, Tom," Marcus said sincerely. "Keep up the good work." As Tom left, Marcus leaned back in his chair, allowing himself a rare moment of satisfaction. It wasn't just the numbers that were improving, it was the people, and that's what mattered most. By the end of the month, Benson Prestige Autos had its best sales week in years. Marcus stood outside the dealership early one morning, watching as the team prepared for the day. Jasmine walked up beside him, holding her tablet. "You did it," she said with a smile. "Sales are up, morale's improving, and customers are happy. You've turned this place around." Marcus shook his head. "We turned this place around. It wasn't just me." "You're being modest," Jasmine teased. "Maybe," Marcus admitted with a grin. "But this is just the beginning." "What's next?" Marcus turned to look at the dealership's sleek glass front, where his team, his people, were hard at work. "Next, we make Benson Prestige Autos, the kind of business that changes lives, not just for us, but for the community." Jasmine nodded. "I like the sound of that." Marcus let out a breath, the weight on his shoulders lighter than it had been in weeks. The dealership was no longer just a place where cars were sold. It was a symbol of redemption, of unity, and of the belief that everyone deserved a second chance. And, as he watched Tom Walker shake hands with a smiling customer inside, Marcus couldn't help but feel hopeful. Even the hardest hearts could change. Sometimes, all it took was someone willing to believe in them. Benson Prestige Autos buzzed with a kind of energy it hadn't seen in years. Customers were streaming in, employees walked the showroom with pride, and the polished cars seemed to sparkle a little brighter under the fluorescent lights. The transformation was palpable, and not just in the numbers. Marcus stood at the center of the dealership one bright Monday morning, watching his team in action. Jasmine's operations strategies had kicked in smoothly, and employees now carried tablets to streamline sales. The front desk offered a more welcoming atmosphere, with complimentary coffee and a concierge system for appointments. But the biggest change was in the people. Tom Walker, once the most defiant person in the room, now stood near a silver Audi A6, enthusiastically explaining its features to a young couple. There was no arrogance in his tone, no presumption, only genuine effort and care. Marcus lingered nearby, listening quietly as Tom closed the deal with ease. When the couple drove away, satisfied and smiling, Tom noticed Marcus watching. He straightened, rubbing his hands together nervously. "What? You spying on me now?" Marcus smirked. "Just admiring good work, Tom. That was a solid sale." Tom shrugged, but Marcus could see the pride in his eyes. "Yeah, well, people respond better when you actually listen to what they need." "Funny how that works, isn't it?" Marcus teased. Tom snorted, shaking his head. All right, you've made your point." Then after a pause he added, "Thanks for pushing me to be better." Marcus's expression softened. "You did that on your own, Tom. I just gave you the space to do it." Tom nodded, muttering something under his breath before heading back to the sales floor. Marcus watched him go, a small smile tugging at his lips. Redemption wasn't always loud and flashy. Sometimes it happened in small, meaningful steps. The next big project came a week later. Marcus, always a man of vision, decided it was time to give back to the community that had shaped him. He called the team into a meeting, the conference room now feeling less like a battleground and more like a space for collaboration. "All right, everyone," Marcus began, looking at his team with a mix of pride and determination. "We've come a long way in just a few weeks. Sales are up, customers are happy, and we're finally moving inventory again. But success isn't just about numbers. It's about what we stand for." He turned toward the screen, where a slideshow displayed images of Baltimore, schools, youth centers, struggling neighborhoods. "I grew up in this city," Marcus continued. "I know what it's like to feel overlooked, to think opportunity doesn't exist for people like us. But I also know what can happen when someone believes in you. This dealership isn't just about cars, it's about changing lives. That's why we're starting the Drive for Change program." The team leaned forward, intrigued. "Here's the idea," Marcus explained. "Every month, we'll donate a percentage of our profits to local youth programs, schools, after-school centers, mentorship initiatives. On top of that, we'll host community events here at the dealership, job fairs, mentorship workshops, anything that creates opportunity." Jasmine grinned. "That's brilliant, Marcus. People will see Benson Prestige as more than a business." "Exactly," Marcus replied. "We'll show this city that success doesn't have to come at the expense of others. It can be shared." Tom raised a hand, looking uncharacteristically thoughtful. "So, you want us to mentor kids? Like, teach them about sales and stuff?" Marcus nodded. "Why not? Some of these kids don't even know what's possible for them. You could teach them how to build confidence, how to communicate. Skills like that can change someone's future." Tom rubbed the back of his neck, looking uncertain but intrigued. "Huh, never thought about it like that." Marcus smiled. "I didn't think I'd see you mentoring anyone a month ago, Tom, but look how far we've come." Tom let out a small laugh, shaking his head. "You've got jokes now, huh?" The team laughed softly, the tension that had once poisoned the room now replaced with something stronger. Trust. DDSU Oskenka, the first Drive for Change event, took place on a crisp Saturday morning. Benson Prestige Autos had never seen anything like it. The showroom was transformed into a community space with tables set up for job workshops, car maintenance tutorials, and mentorship signups. A group of local teens milled around, wide-eyed and curious. Tom stood at the front of the showroom, leading a group of high school students through a basic sales workshop. He gestured toward one of the cars on display. "Now, when you're talking to a customer, it's not about pushing the most expensive thing on them. It's about listening. What do they really want? What do they need? Once you know that, the rest is easy." One of the teens, a lanky boy named Jamal, raised his hand. But what if they don't take you seriously? Like, what if they think you don't know what you're talking about? Tom paused, his gaze softening. You keep going. You show them you do know what you're talking about. You keep your head up, even if they doubt you. He glanced over at Marcus, who stood nearby. Trust me, sometimes people judge you before you even say a word. But that doesn't mean you stop trying. Jamal nodded, absorbing the words. Nearby, Marcus spoke to a group of parents and community leaders. This isn't just about cars, it's about opportunity. For too long, businesses like this one have ignored the communities they're in. That changes today. Benson Prestige Autos is here for Baltimore. The room buzzed with energy, hope sparking in conversations. As the day wound down, Marcus stood near the entrance, watching families leave with smiles on their faces. Tom walked up beside him, uncharacteristically quiet. You did good today, Tom, Marcus said. Tom let out a breath, glancing back at the teens packing up their workshop materials. Yeah, didn't think I'd enjoy it, but it felt good, like I was doing something that mattered. You were, Marcus replied. You don't know how much a little encouragement can change someone's life. Tom was silent for a moment, then said quietly, Maybe I'm starting to get it. Marcus looked at him and smiled. Good, because this is just the beginning. Tom gave him a small nod and walked away, leaving Marcus alone to take in the moment. Benson Prestige Autos wasn't just a dealership anymore. It was a symbol of growth, redemption, and hope. Marcus had set out to prove something, not just to himself or to Tom Walker, but to everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus knew that this transformation of the business, the people, and the community was only getting started. Months passed, and Benson Prestige Autos had become something no one could have predicted. What was once a struggling dealership drowning in old habits had now transformed into a thriving, community-driven business. Sales were consistently up, customer satisfaction ratings soared, and the buzz around town was undeniable. People didn't just come to the dealership to buy cars, they came to connect. Marcus stood at his office window one late afternoon, watching as the lot below bustled with activity. A family was inspecting a shiny black SUV, while Eric, the young and enthusiastic salesman, guided them with his signature charm. Across the lot, Tom Walker, now Benson Prestige's top-performing salesman, stood talking to Jamal, the lanky teenager who had attended the mentorship workshop months ago. Jamal had taken an interest in sales after that first event. Tom had taken him under his wing, giving him pointers and inviting him to shadow him at the dealership on weekends. Seeing the two of them together, a man who had once been set in his ways and a young kid who needed guidance, filled Marcus with pride. Jasmine knocked gently on the office door. "You've got a visitor, boss." "Send them in." The door opened, and to Marcus's surprise, Tom Walker stepped in, holding a small, unmarked box. He looked uncharacteristically nervous, shifting his weight as he entered. "Tom," Marcus said, gesturing to the seat across from him, "what can I do for you?" Tom set the box down on Marcus's desk and sat, looking at his hands before clearing his throat. "This isn't business," he said, his voice gruff but quieter than usual. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "All right, what is it then?" Tom let out a breath, rubbing the back of his neck, a habit Marcus had come to recognize as his tell when something important was on his mind. "Look," Tom started, "I know we didn't get off to the best start. Hell, I was probably the last person you wanted to see when you bought this place." Marcus leaned back, hands folded, saying nothing. He wanted to hear Tom out. Tom's voice softened. "I spent years thinking I had people all figured out. Who belonged in places like this, who didn't, who deserved respect, and who didn't. And you proved me wrong, Marcus." Marcus tilted his head slightly, surprised by Tom's words. "I'm not proud of the way I treated you that day," Tom continued, his eyes focused on the box on Marcus's desk. "The truth is, I judged you before you even said a word, and I've been carrying that ever since. Not because you bought the place and proved me wrong, but because I realized something. You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve one." "You earned that chance, Tom," Marcus said evenly. Tom shook his head. "No, I didn't. But you gave it to me anyway. You could have humiliated me, pushed me out, made an example of me, but you didn't. And that changed something in me." Tom pushed the box toward Marcus. "I got you this. It's not much, but it's a way of saying thank you." Marcus hesitated, his curiosity piqued, before slowly lifting the lid. Inside was a small engraved plaque. The polished silver plate read, "To Marcus Johnson, for believing in people when no one else would." Marcus blinked, momentarily speechless. The simplicity of the gesture struck him deeply. "Tom," he said quietly, "you didn't have to do this." "I know," Tom replied, "but I wanted to. I owe you more than I can say. You didn't just save this place, you saved me. I didn't realize how far I'd fallen until you forced me to look in the mirror." Marcus looked at Tom, his voice steady but warm. "You know, when I first walked into this dealership, I didn't expect anything to change. I figured you were just another man set in his ways, and nothing I could say would matter." Tom smirked faintly. "Can't blame you for thinking that. I was a real piece of work." Marcus chuckled softly. "Maybe, but I've learned something important, Tom. People are capable of change. They just need someone to believe in them. You showed me that too." Tom looked up, a mixture of relief and gratitude on his face. "Well, I guess we're even then." Marcus picked up the plaque, running his thumb over the engraved letters. "Not yet," he said, smiling. "But we're getting there." 2 weeks later, Benson Prestige Autos hosted its second Drive for Change event, and this time it was bigger than anyone expected. The showroom was alive with activity, kids participating in workshops, adults networking for job opportunities, and members of the community chatting with the dealership staff. Jasmine stood near the coffee bar, handing out brochures about the dealership's community programs. Tom, once again, led a group of teenagers through a workshop on communication and confidence, his booming voice occasionally followed by bursts of laughter from the kids. Marcus walked through the showroom, shaking hands and speaking to guests, when a familiar voice called out to him, "Marcus Johnson, is that you?" He turned to see an older black man in a sharp suit approaching him with a warm smile. It was Mr. Leland, Marcus's former high school principal. "Mr. Leland," Marcus said, surprised but delighted. He shook the man's hand firmly. "What brings you here?" Mr. Leland gestured around the bustling showroom. "I had to see it for myself. Word around town is you're changing lives, Marcus. I always knew you had it in you." Marcus smiled. "You were one of the first people who believed in me, sir. I wouldn't be here without mentors like you." Mr. Leland's face softened. "And now you're paying it forward. That's what it's all about." Marcus glanced around the room, his heart full. Benson Prestige Autos had become more than a business. It was a force for good in the community. Young kids who once felt forgotten were now seeing opportunities where none had existed. Employees like Tom were finding redemption, and Marcus himself had proven something important, that success didn't have to come at the expense of others. As the event wound down, Marcus stood at the entrance, watching families leave with smiles and renewed hope. Jasmine joined him, holding a cup of coffee. "You ever think you'd see this when you walked into this dealership for the first time?" she asked. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. "Not in a million years." "You did it, Marcus." "We did it," he corrected. Jasmine smiled. "What's next, then?" Marcus looked out at the city skyline, the last rays of sunlight turning the buildings gold. "We keep building. We keep giving back. This is just the beginning." Jasmine nodded, following his gaze. You really think one business can change the world? Marcus smiled, his voice filled with certainty. It's a start. And for the first time in a long time, Marcus Johnson felt like he was exactly where he belonged. 6 months had passed since Marcus Johnson became the owner of Benson Prestige Autos, and the transformation was nothing short of extraordinary. The once failing dealership was now a beacon of success and community empowerment. It wasn't just about selling cars anymore. It was about creating a lasting impact. The morning sun reflected off rows of gleaming vehicles parked neatly in the lot. Inside the showroom, employees bustled with energy, engaging with customers and showing off the latest models. What struck Marcus most wasn't the sales numbers, though they were the best in the dealership's history. It was the sense of pride in his team. People had changed, Tom Walker especially. The man who once sneered at Marcus now walked the floor as a respected mentor to the younger salesman. Tom was no longer just a veteran salesman. He had become someone others looked up to. His transformation was a testament to what second chances could achieve. Yes, that afternoon, Marcus called an all-staff meeting in the showroom. The entire team gathered near the reception area, where Jasmine had set up a small podium. A buzz of curiosity hummed through the crowd as Marcus stepped forward. "Good afternoon, everyone," Marcus began, his voice steady yet warm. 6 months ago, this dealership was struggling. Sales were down, morale was low, and our reputation wasn't what it should have been. But look at us now. He gestured to the team standing before him. Every single one of you played a role in turning this place around. You showed up, you worked hard, and you trusted me when I asked you to embrace change. That's not easy, and I'll never take it for granted." The employees nodded, some smiling, others standing straighter with pride. Marcus continued, "But this isn't just about business. It's about people. We've proven that when you treat people with respect, whether they're customers, colleagues, or members of the community, good things happen." He paused, letting his words settle. "This is just the beginning. I'm proud of what we've achieved, but we're not stopping here. Benson Prestige Autos will continue to grow and will continue to give back to the community that raised us." Tom Walker, standing near the front, gave a small nod of approval. Marcus caught his eye and smiled. Tom had come a long way, and Marcus knew that this victory belonged to him as much as anyone else. "To celebrate our success," Marcus announced, "I'm implementing a profit-sharing program for all employees, starting this month. When this business does well, so do you." The room erupted into cheers, and Marcus couldn't help but grin. Jasmine beamed beside him, clapping along with the others. "And finally," Marcus added, holding up his hand for quiet, "we're expanding the Drive for Change initiative. Starting next month, we'll partner with local schools to offer internships and scholarships for underprivileged youth. We're going to give them opportunities to dream bigger and work toward a better future." Applause echoed through the room, but Marcus's gaze lingered on Tom, whose expression had softened into something Marcus couldn't quite describe. Gratitude, perhaps. Respect. Whatever it was, it carried weight. Later that evening, Marcus stood alone in his office, the setting sun casting long shadows on the polished floor. He looked at the plaque Tom had given him months earlier, "For believing in people when no one else would." The words resonated with him deeply. He thought back to the first day he had walked into Benson Prestige Autos as a customer, the humiliation he'd felt, the quiet rage simmering beneath his calm exterior. Back then, he couldn't have imagined this moment, owning the very place where he'd been dismissed, turning it into something bigger than himself. A knock at the door broke his reverie. It was Tom. "You're still here?" Marcus asked, smiling faintly. Tom shrugged, stepping inside. "Thought I'd check in before I head out." Marcus leaned back against his desk. "What's on your mind?" Tom hesitated, his hands in his pockets. "You know, when you first took over, I thought you were here to make a fool of me. I figured you'd toss me out, and I wouldn't have blamed you if you did." Marcus tilted his head. "What changed?" Tom let out a long breath. You didn't write me off, even when I deserved it. I don't know what made you believe I could change, but I'm grateful you did." "You showed me you could," Marcus replied simply. "It was all you, Tom." Tom nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I spent years thinking I was better than other people because of what I knew, what I'd done. But I didn't realize how small I'd let myself become. You showed me that I had more to give." Marcus smiled. "Everyone does. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us." Tom smirked faintly, shaking his head. "You're a good man, Marcus. I don't say that lightly." "Thank you, Tom." The two men stood in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken history hanging between them. Finally, Tom spoke again. "See you tomorrow, boss." "See you tomorrow, Tom." And the following Saturday, Benson Prestige Autos hosted its biggest event yet. Families flooded the dealership lot, drawn by the community fair that Marcus and his team had organized. There were food trucks, music, job workshops, and a section dedicated to car care tutorials for young drivers. In the center of it all stood a booth for the Drive for Change initiative, where students signed up for scholarships and mentorship programs. Marcus walked among the crowd, shaking hands and listening to people's stories. It was humbling to see how far things had come, not just for the dealership, but for the community. At one point, a young boy approached Marcus, tugging shyly at his sleeve. "Are you Mr. Johnson?" Marcus crouched down so they were eye to eye. "I am. What's your name?" "Caleb," the boy said. "My mom said you help kids go to school. Can I do that too?" Marcus smiled warmly. "Of course you can, Caleb. You can do anything you put your mind to." The boy grinned and ran back to his mother, leaving Marcus standing there, his heart full. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus found himself standing at the edge of the lot, looking out over the scene. The laughter, the hope, the transformation. Jasmine approached, standing beside him. "You see all this?" she asked, her voice soft. "This is because of you." Marcus shook his head. "This is because of all of us. You, the team, the community, even Tom." Jasmine chuckled. "Tom's a different man these days." "People surprise you," Marcus said, his gaze distant. "They're capable of so much more than we give them credit for." Jasmine smiled. "And what about you, Marcus? Are you surprised?" Marcus turned to look at her, his expression calm but full of pride. "Every day." He glanced out at the lights of the city, his heart swelling with gratitude. The dealership had once been a place of humiliation for him. Now it was a symbol of hope, unity, and second chances, not just for Marcus, but for everyone who walked through its doors. As the music played softly in the background and the laughter of children echoed through the lot, Marcus whispered to himself the words that had carried him this far. Never let someone else's opinion define who you are. Because in the end, Marcus Johnson had done more than prove himself. He had changed lives, and in doing so, he had changed his own.